Welcome everyone to this important training, Saturday morning training to learn more about the tools, the digital tools that volunteers can use, campaign volunteers to use in order to win this election. Across the board, all candidates, all campaigns, what are the tools we volunteers can learn, for many of us, and use to be effective? We're certainly limited with the virus to how we can connect personally with eligible voters. But with these tools, we can really expand our outreach to these folks. And we're excited to have Deidre for the first, how long can you stay with us, Deidre?
I should be able to stay on until a little after 10:30.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. So thank you. She has another important project. In your role, remind us of your role, both the focused role and also I know you're making a difference in other areas as well.
Sure. So I'm also originally from Cincinnati, from the west side, for those I haven't met yet. But I am the judicial campaign coordinator. So I work with all of our judicial candidates. And I have to leave early today because we're doing our first literature drop this morning. So it'll be a good test of how that goes. We'll get some good feedback from folks and see if it's something we can continue to do down the line.
Terrific, yes. And we're also, so here we have the Hamilton County, I call you the digital guru of Hamilton County. So all the tools, the genius maybe. And then, but now from Ohio, from Columbus, George, and the ODP, tell us about your role, George, and how you got there maybe, or because we know Deidre down, many of us know Deidre well, but some of us are just getting to know you, George.
Yeah, of course. So, hi everyone, my name is George Clark. I am currently an engagement associate at the Ohio Democratic Party. I've been in that role formally since about November. Prior to that, I was a summer fellow for the Ohio Democratic Party, working in their field program, organizing for some local races in the 2019 cycle. Prior to that, I had just graduated from Ohio State, and I interned at a few different places, including the state party, the Franklin County Democratic Party in Columbus, and then the DC office of Senator Sherrod Brown. So in my role at the party, I handle a lot of our online engagement, our digital voter engagement and mobilization. I do a lot of our management of our digital tools, working with the companies to make sure that we have solutions set up for our volunteers and activists and campaigns so that they all work properly and all the data goes where it's supposed to go. I work with our data team on that. And I also do a lot of outreach to our progressive groups and organizations. So this is exactly my wheelhouse. So I'm really excited.
Oh, good. So we're really blessed here to have the Hamilton County, and it was part of my vision was to create these coordinations between the different levels within our campaign. And so to have Ohio and Hamilton County here, I'd like to, thanks to Deidre, you sent me over, and I changed this a little bit, Deidre, from what the tools are. What are the digital tools for campaign volunteers to use to engage with eligible voters to win elections? And there will be, and today is part of that. And I know you put out a recording from the judicial meeting that we had, the summit on Thursday. Didn't you put out just recently the recording of the training you did for that? Didn't that just come out, Deidre?
I did, yeah. I sent it out this morning. It was a very long video, so it took a while to load, but I got that out today. And then I shared the slide deck that I used as well. I do have just a quick question. I do want to talk more about Outvote, but I did want to ask George, is the ODP using Outvote in the future, or?
So we are currently not using Outvote at this time, but I've seen like what you guys are doing with it a little bit in Hamilton County. I don't think that we're going to be moving to it this cycle, but so that would be all you guys.
Got it.
Pardon me, Deidre, do you have another tool that that does something very similar to Outvote that you're choosing in the ODP, George?
So we're kind of, Hamilton County is using Reach and Outvote a little bit in tandem. We are a little bit more sticking a little bit exclusively with Reach for a few different reasons, but I like that said, I think Outvote's a really good tool and it's super useful. And like if you're using it in Hamilton County, I think that you can use both Reach and Outvote in tandem.
Yeah. What is your thinking about that? Were you surprised, Deidre, that because this is part of the coordination work, that they're not using Outvote? And what is your experience with Outvote been?
No, I'm not surprised. I just heard, I thought I heard somebody from the precinct executive training on Thursday mention it, and I was like, oh, I didn't know, which is why I wanted to ask. But so this is actually my first time using Outvote. It's a relatively new tool, but it is something that, you know, Reach is incredible as well. We're going to be using that, and I'll probably let George speak more to that since it's definitely more in your wheelhouse. But with Outvote, we really like it because it's a way that we can post, excuse me, I'm like losing my voice. It's a way that we can post all of our actions that we would like volunteers to take, big or small. The actions that we're able to put on there can be, you know, sharing certain social media posts we want amplified directly to your Twitter or Facebook, doing some relational messaging. So in a similar way to Reach, where you can kind of, it's based around relational organizing. It's set up so that you can directly message your friends and family about, you know, texting the slate card to them or the sample ballot, or, you know, making sure that they're registered, or, you know, seeing if they're going to vote by mail. This is also where we're going to do all of our peer-to-peer texting. So, you know, direct voter texting. We are also able to post our other events. So like if we are having phone banks and we want to, you know, share that that's going on, we can embed our mobilize links and the sign up links in Outvote. We can collect like videos or photos from people volunteering from home, or, you know, why they support judicial candidates, or why, you know, voting down the ballot's important.
Wow, it's a powerful tool.
So it is. Jermaine McDuffie's campaign, I thought I heard Mary Carroll on one of these calls recently ask for volunteers to submit a short video of themselves, why they support Charmaine. So this is, you know, a way that you could do it through that app, and it goes directly to us.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Let me see. I want to test with George. Now, with that glowing capabilities and excitement, George, are you convinced that the ODP should be using Outvote too?
Yeah, so it's not that we think Outvote is a bad tool. We looked at a bunch of different relational tools. It's just for the purposes of the state party and like creating a statewide coordinated campaign, we really don't want to like overburden people with like too many different tools. And like Hamilton County, for example, if you're like honing in on like a specific area, it's a lot easier to kind of train people on both the tools and you know, do that kind of thing rather than roll it out at a statewide platform. So that's kind of like why we're not doing multiple different tools. We explored going with either Outvote or Reach, or there's Voter Circle. There's a whole bunch of things that kind of do some stuff like this. They're all a little bit different.
Right.
And for like what we needed to do, we decided that Reach for us was the way to go to roll out statewide, because it has a lot of the similar functionality. There are a few minor differences, but we thought that, you know, rolling it out statewide, we only wanted to go with one tool. And so when we weighed it, we thought Reach worked best for the entire state. In Hamilton County, it makes perfect sense as to why you might go with something like Outvote that works in tandem with Reach. It's not necessarily an either or. They can work together quite well.
That is cool. And I am impressed, George, that I heard that you are an enlightened being, but your background there in your picture is so cool that you are enlightened. I can see that just getting to know you.
Thank you.
Question from the chat, excuse me.
Sure.
The question to Deidre and George, is there a rule of thumb on timing for posting on social media, etc., or texting, slate cards, whatever? Can you address that? Thanks.
I can answer for Outvote, and then George, if you want to talk more for Reach in particular. So the way that we have it set up is, I mean, if you wanted to, we can schedule when those actions show up, so that, you know, we're sharing in terms of social media posts, we're sharing, you know, the most recent ones that we want amplified. But in terms of sharing it on social media, you know, I think just a good rule of thumb is not doing it at like 3 in the morning or something like that. But I did see in the chat, if they said, Antoinette said, or testing, if you mean texting, through Outvote for both like the relational texting and the direct voter texting that we do, we're able to schedule it so that you can't actually text past like 8 p.m., between 8 p.m. and 7 a.m., 8 a.m. that day. So that, someone doesn't hop on and start texting at 2 in the morning or something like that. So we're able to kind of control that on the back end through Outvote.
And George, how your perceptions of that or answer to that question?
Yeah, definitely. So very similar to Deidre, taking a look at making sure that people aren't texting and reaching out to voters at 2 a.m., for example. There are some controls that we have on that, especially with some of the other, we have some other peer-to-peer texting tools that we're using, things like Hustle, stuff like that. So we can control that. If you're looking for good rules of thumb for posting on social media, the best times and days are weekdays during the traditional workday, even during COVID. So basically from 9 to 3, you shorten it a little bit because at the end of people's day, they don't really pay attention as much. But if you're looking for higher engagement on your social media posts, from 9 to 3 on weekdays are usually the best. The best actually exact day and time is Wednesdays from 11 to 1. So Wednesdays around the lunch hour are the best, most highest engagement on, especially on Facebook.
That is cool. That's good to know these things. I'm going to scan down here.
Excuse me. Another part of that rule of thumb on timing is it better to start posting now in July and keep posting until November 3rd? Or are there some things like the slate cards that people would want to have in hand when they go to vote, either by absentee ballot or in person, that they should have closer to that time? Is there a rule of thumb around that? Because with me, it would get lost. If I get it tomorrow, by the time I get my ballot and go to vote, who knows where that slate card is going to be in the cyber world. Thank you.
George, what's your response to that part?
Yeah, so to me, this is a question of diminishing returns and posting on social media. And so from what we've seen, it does not hurt to consistently post like a slate card from now until election day. The more people that see it, the more people that have it in hand, the more times that they're seeing it, the more likely they are to remember a down ballot judicial candidate like Ginger Bach or something like that. You're going to recognize the name the more times you see it. So that's really important. I don't think it hurts to start posting now, start planting the seeds, putting it in people's mind. I think that Democrats are on the verge of a really big victory nationwide. And so the more that we can shift those effects to down ballot candidates and, let the wave fully crash here in the state of Ohio, I think that we can start doing that work now.
Terrific. Deidre, anything to add to that, or is George on point?
That was perfectly on point. I 100% agree with George.
Yeah, cool. I want to scan, and Laurel, again, thank you for managing. Is there anything else at this point from the chat, Laurel?
Linda, we can either go, if you feel comfortable coming in with a mask, we can do that, or we can go out back. I've got patio furniture.
Can you mute that person, Antoinette?
Stuff the things out back.
1 second here.
I did.
Thank you. So to scan, as an organizer, I like getting what are the group of tools, and Deidre provided these for me, and I wanted to. We already heard that Hustle is a particular tool that is not being used in Hamilton County. Is that accurate, Deidre?
Yes.
Okay.
Our texting, direct voter texting will be done on Outvote. Most of it will be done on Outvote.
Right. So here, Outvote and Reach, we've at least touched on these two, and you'll see I tried to highlight the basic tool, the basic purpose for each one in the blue. Then there's Call Hub, which I think many of us are used to. Is that right, Deidre? We've used that in the primary and maybe earlier too during the 18 campaigns?
Yes, so that is the dialer system, the phone banking system we'll use to make most of our direct voter contact calls in Hamilton County. It's really similar. If you volunteered to make phone calls on a campaign in the past, if you've not used Call Hub, I'm sure you've probably used something similar. I don't know if you guys, ODP's chosen a specific dialer that they're using yet, George.
We have not chosen a specific auto dialer yet. We're exploring a few different options. We actually have been in touch with the Ohio AFL-CIO on their auto dialer system as well. So we're still kind of testing a few different options, but I've used Call Hub and I like it. So
good. Yeah. So you will be choosing one, and we have two AFL-CIO leaders here with us today, so you can make the pitch for how important that is. But the so you're going to make a choice, but it's like coming soon. Is that right for the ODP?
Yeah, definitely. So for now, just getting started off the ground here initially, we've been doing a manual dial, which I mean is still fine. It's, you know, not ideal. I like the auto dialer a little bit better, but we're gonna go with an auto dialer system and get that rolled up and put to scale here really soon.
Good guy, good. And then Map the Vote is interesting to register voters. And on the training that Deidre did the other day, you know, we looked at that some. Is that going to be available to people, or is will there really be times when you'll say, let's have a Map the Vote party or whatever? What's your picture of that, Deidre?
Well, I really like Map the Vote. If you actually, like the link that you provided there, if you click that, you can access it. It's free and available for anyone. And it is probably the best database and mapping software that shows you good information on where likely unregistered voters are or people that need to update their registration. It is almost like if you've canvassed with Minivan before, it's almost exactly that, but for unregistered voters. I really wanted to talk about it and share it because I think it's something that would be really helpful down the line. Unfortunately, we're at a point just because of the virus that we can't actually knock on doors and register voters like we would love to. It would be really great to be able to do a, you know, a coordinated weekend of action where we send a bunch of people out to knock on doors and register people. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that. We might do some type of VR and vote by mail form lit drop to those folks in the future, but we're still really just trying to gauge what people's comfort levels are right now and you know, making sure that we're still staying safe. But it's something that I've been viewing, and we're going to do a voter registration weekend here, coordinating with Charmaine's campaign, Fanon's campaign, a bunch of more local folks in a couple weeks. And I've been looking at that just to see like hot pockets of, you know, where unregistered people are. And
can we do it by mail, for example, or some other system? I know you don't get the personal data of their name or their email address when you use Map the Vote, but can it be used with mail? So if you looked up an address, so-and-so Summit Avenue, you know, 947 is not registered, and send then a voter registration form and vote by mail form. Is that possible? I know there'd be the cost of postage, but is that possible, Deidre?
It is possible. So the only information you actually get is the address of where that person likely isn't registered. But we probably very likely won't be running a mail program sending that out to folks just because of the cost. And if we do any type of getting that out there, it'll be some type of like literature drop or like form drop, I guess you'd call it.
Right. George, what's your insights about Map the Vote? Is that anything that the ODP is using?
Yeah, so I've seen Map the Vote. ODP has a few different ways that we go about because we are going to be running a voter registration mail program in some targeted areas, and we rely on a lot of the data from something like Vote Builder or the National Change of Address database, a few different places to get that. And it's the same data that Map the Vote is going off of, but we just compile it and use it a little bit differently because we want to register people who are highly likely to be Democrats. We're really not interested in registering too many Republicans. And so just that's what we are doing as far as voter registration. We also, Vashita Johnson is in our voter protection department. She is going to be running a voter registration program where we place voter registration forms and absentee ballot request forms in businesses so that people, when they either come to pick up their food or they stop in the business, even, you know, if they're social distancing, they can grab a voter registration form and register to vote.
Terrific.
Question from the chat, 2 questions from Sandy.
Yes.
One is, can we use Map the Vote and put the address into Reach and then possibly get the person's name and then contact and see if they're likely, you know, see what their voting preference. And the other question is, Sandy says she's trying to use Reach and she's taken her vote builder list for the streets in Mount Adams that she's a street captain for and entered the info from vote builder into Reach. From there, I'm not always sure what to do next. If the vote builder phone number is wrong, then I don't think I can text. Is there a guide manual I can use to learn more? So 2 questions.
Let's do the first one first and repeat that one again, Laura.
The first one is, can we use the address in Map the Vote and input that into Reach, which would then get the name?
Yes, okay. Deidre, is that a possibility?
If they're unregistered, if you look them up in Reach, they won't show up because they're not registered, and Reach only contains the voter file, which is only registered voters.
Good, so that won't work. And the second one again.
The second one was, I'm trying to use Reach. I've taken my vote builder list for the streets in Mount Adams that I'm street captain for. I've entered the info into vote builders, the info from vote builder into Reach. From there, I'm not always sure what to do next. If the vote builder phone number is wrong, I don't think I can text. Is there a guide manual I can use?
So I can kind of speak to that a little bit. I'm trying to parse out a little bit of a lot of what's in there, because you can't enter lists into Reach. I'm assuming that Sandy is saying that she took her list of voters and she one by one entered any information that she had in there into Reach, which is good. But you're correct in that if there's no phone number for that person listed in Vote Builder, it's certainly not going to be in Reach. So there's no way to like get that phone number unless like you ask them. So either writing them a postcard or, you know, if this were the times before, talking to them in person. So that's not really what Reach is used for. What Reach should be used for is one, reaching out to your friends and family who you do have phone numbers and contact information for. And then 2, if you encounter somebody, like let's say you are writing a postcard to people in your precinct, and you know, you mail that out and they write back to you with their information or something like that, then you could enter that information. It's meant to kind of collect that information. It's not like a storage place for you to use that information and pull it out. It's meant to have information go in, not necessarily out.
Yeah, terrific. Thank you, Laurel, for managing the questions. Thank you for submitting them. In a bit here, we'll be able to do verbal, but it's right now while we're covering these different tools, I think it's important to keep the focus on this range of tools. Vote Builder, is that something that we know, I think, what it's used for? Many of us do, and if there's a question, they have more of a description about it. Is that something that we as campaign activists, supporters would use, or is that something the campaign managers and the parties would use? How much of that is the volunteer level and how much is the party campaign level? Deidre, I know you have to leave pretty soon, so what's your view here in Hamilton County?
Yeah, so I know that we have a lot of folks in Hamilton County that will be given access, a certain level of access to Vote Builder. If you're a precinct executive or a ward chair, things like that, I'll be adding a lot of folks to our system this weekend, actually, so be on the lookout for that. But it is mostly used by campaigns, and I think when I put this together and shared it with Susan and you guys, I only put it on here really to make sure that everyone knows that this is, I call Vote Builder the mother host when I explain sort of how all the other tools work. So all the information that goes into the other apps that we use comes from Vote Builder, and all of the information that gets input to the third-party apps goes back into Vote Builder. So it's just our database where we keep everything, keep all of our, important information and updated data.
Terrific.
Yeah.
What to add to that, George?
No, Deidre's 100% correct in that when I give these presentations, sometimes people ask, well, what about Minivan and Vote Builder? Are those going away? And the answer is no, they are, she's right, the mother hub of where all of everything else comes from. So that is 100% correct.
Terrific.
I have to hop off, but thank you guys so much for having me. It's good to see you all. We're having our first lit drop, so hopefully I'll see you guys Bold New Democracy or another Saturday training soon. So thank you.
Thank you,
See you soon.
Deidre.
Bye, guys.
Bye,
For
Deidre.
being a leader. It's so important. Your role is so good. Is this accurate, George? This is the last on the list that Deidre provided here that were the tools. But is this accurate that this is used by the parties and the campaigns for signups and stuff? But we as activists and political groups and activist groups, we don't really have access or would be using Mobilize. Is that accurate or not?
For the most part, yes. If you're having a big event though, or something, not a regular meeting, but if you were doing something with like a candidate or something like that, there actually is a way for you to kind of create your own Mobilize events for free. You don't get all the bells and whistles that the candidates would, but you still get to do that. You could go to mobilize.us/OHDEMS. And at the top right, there's a button that says host an event. And you could click that and design your own event and you would be the event host. So that's for free through the Ohio Democratic Party's Mobilize account.
That's cool. What's the advantage of doing that over, Bold New Democracy creates many events, including this one, and we tend to use exclusively use Facebook events as a listing and people can follow that. What is the advantage of Mobilize America over Facebook event?
Yeah, so for the big advantage for Mobilize over Facebook events is one, people have to give hard signups. So with Facebook events, sometimes you'll get a lot of people say they're interested and a lot of those people flake. Mobilize is a lot more firm. The other benefit is they get automatic confirmation emails and texts from Mobilize to confirm that they're coming.
Yeah.
And then the other big advantage is that any information from Mobilize America syncs to Vote Builder. And so we're keeping track of that information, whereas on Facebook after the event, the information's kind of lost. So.
Yeah, cool. That is great. You mentioned Hustle that you're using at the ODP. You're using Hustle, and we are not using that down here. Are there other tools, these Mobilize the digital tools that the volunteers, the activists can use that you're using in addition to Hustle that is not being used down here?
So largely, I mean, the Hamilton County Dems and us are really on the same page. I've been in touch with both Deidre and Eddie as we've been designing a lot of our, digital programs. And we're really focused on Hamilton County this year because, to be quite honest, you guys are the largest county with a whole slew of competitive countywide races, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a whole lot up in Franklin County, at least that we're worried about. There's one prosecutor's race there. Cuyahoga County is obviously structured a little differently, but there's nothing super competitive countywide there. Maybe a handful of judicial races. But as far as like county executive offices, Hamilton County is the hotspot of elections this year. And so, and in addition to that, you have Kate Schroeder, you have Sarah Bitter, and Jessica Miranda obviously running for re-election in a seat that we really need to hold, and I believe she will. But
yes,
we have to put the work in. So there's a lot to do in Hamilton County, and you guys are building out the most robust county-wide operation, I would certainly say. But we've been working really hard to make sure that we're all pretty much on the same page. Hamilton County is like using a few additional tools that are more specific to them. Our tools are a lot broader in an approach to kind of envelop the whole state. So Eddie and Deidre have done a really great job building a unique approach for Hamilton County with the tools that work kind of in conjunction with the coordinated campaigns tools. But we're largely going to be operating hand in hand. It's not going to be extremely separate from ODP's coordinated campaign. So really that's what I have to say on that, is that they've designed something that I think works really well, that I've certainly been on calls and helped out with, and we're excited for what we can do together in Hamilton County. Hustle is maybe the most is the biggest example of a tool that we're using that Hamilton County is not, and that's largely because of cost. Hustle is expensive, and so it can be a little bit harder for and not as cost prohibitive.
What does that do? What does Hustle do besides trying to get money from people on the street? You kind of try to hustle.
Yeah, so Hustle is a peer-to-peer texting platform where you send, when you think of like a text bank, right, and you send texts over and over and over again to a whole list of voters that's preloaded up. That's what Hustle does for the most part. It doesn't rely on friend-to-friend action like outvoter reach. We will be doing that as well. That's a very good use of time and good use of peer-to-peer texting. But sometimes we got to send cold SMS messages to a broader list of people, and Hustle is how we do that.
Terrific. So let's ask some questions here before digging in even more. And particularly if you wish to ask, how do I overcome my resistance to reach? Or how do I overcome my resistance to any of these tools is a great question to ask, George, because many of us have resistances. We might not talk about them a lot, but we have them. We might gripe about them. Yeah. But any question actually for George, who has comments, questions, or suggestions for George?
I did want to note one thing from Michaela. She mentioned that Hustle is going to be used, specifically for Rep Miranda's campaign. And that's true. Some individual campaigns in Hamilton County might be using Hustle as well. So it's not just at the county-wide, level, they might not be using it, but specific campaigns might. So thank you for pointing that out, Michaela. Yeah. That's a good point.
Way to go. Yes. Jessica Miranda has to win. Sarah Bitter has to win. Who's next? Question, comment, suggestion for George? Yes, Susan.
Hello.
Hi. I did reach training a while ago, and when I went in yesterday, I had to get a new number. So can you just sort of explain, is there a length of time, or does it expire, or do I need one for each campaign?
Did you do reach training with me and the Ohio Dems, or did you do it for Warren? Okay, so you need a new campaign code to get in for each specific campaign. So for the Ohio Dems, we have a unique campaign code. It's not like, because reach is being used by campaigns all over the country. I know the Montana Democratic Party is using it. I believe Wisconsin is using it somewhat. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez uses it. There are some state house candidates in Florida that are using it. So it's all over. So to get the specific campaign and voters that you need, you have to enter a campaign code, and ODP can provide that code if you jump on one of my digital trainings, which I have every Wednesday at 6 and every Saturday at 3 o'clock. There's a mobilized link that I'll actually share with you guys.
Yeah, and if you could send that to me too, although because I can put it on our I want to get a whole section of our agendas now for Bold New Democracy in our Indivisible group called trainings, because it's so crucial, especially with the virus, to be able to do this, George. So if you don't mind, I want to list that every time, every week. Yeah.
Every Wednesday at 6, and what was the other?
Saturdays at 3 o'clock.
You'll be getting that. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I remember.
Sorry, Sunday.
I did it with Kate Schroeder's campaign. So each candidate then probably has their own code if they're using.
Yeah, and actually, so I'm glad that you mentioned Kate Schroeder. So ODP has expanded our reach account to include various sub-campaigns. And that means that the data can go where it needs to, and they can ask the questions of each campaign. So if ODP's coordinated campaign is using reach in Kate Schroeder's district, they can ask the same questions that the Kate Schroeder campaign wants them to ask. And that data the ODP questions and information will go to ODP, the Kate Schroeder data and information will go to Kate Schroeder.
Yeah.
So we can all kind of really be on the same page. And I think that makes Reach particularly powerful. And Kate Schroeder has gained access to Reach. Her campaign got it through us. It's something that we provided to them as a tool to use. And so we're really excited for them to use it. That is likely how you used it. If you want to do, work on the coordinated campaign as well, our primary question is in Kate Schroeder's Reach account. You can ask that question. It's, I think, support for Ohio Dems on a scale of 1 to 5 is our main question. But anything other than that, you'll need our campaign code to get in. But otherwise, for the most part, you can do both.
Are there others besides Kate Schroeder that you're particularly linked to, if that's the right language, George?
Yeah, Hamilton County, so we have, we gave 2 accounts to Hamilton County, one for Kate Schroeder and then one for their county party to use it. So the Reach account that Deidre is using is linked to the Ohio Dems as well.
Terrific. Thank you,
There
Susan.
is
Who's next?
a question from the caller on the phone,
Yes.
375-0042.
Yeah, introduce yourself and please ask a question or suggestion.
Hi, this is Marjorie Mosley, and I'm so glad I was able to get on the call. I am a ward precinct person from 2B, which is Madisonville.
Yeah.
I am helping out on Nicole Sanders' campaign and Carrie Bloom.
Yes.
However, my concern is those voters who do not traditionally vote in every election, and what is the plan to do this outreach? Because we know that in Avondale, Moosewood, and Winton Terrace, we have voters out there, but we don't have a plan that is effective to do the outreach, and the majority of them do not get on these phone calls or go by the process that we may have in place. We may need to be thinking about them differently.
Yeah, good point. Yes, George.
Yeah, so as far as with the state campaign, I just want to note 2 things. One, it's a really good point, and ODP is looking at possible non-voters. So a lot of the talk from 2016 talks about Obama to Trump voters, which are an important demographic, right? We need to win some of them back to win the state of Ohio. But another really important group of people that we need to win is Obama to non-voters, right?
Yeah.
Or Obama to voters that voted third party. And really, that's where we lost a lot of ground from 12 to 16. And so ODP has been working at a targeted mail and digital ad strategy toward those voters. Because, like, let's just be fully honest, we don't have the tool in our arsenal that we would normally use to reach those people, which is knocking on their door.
Yeah.
We don't have it. There's not really a great way to make up for it other than targeted mail, targeted digital ads, possibly some call and dialer campaigns to try and get them on the phone and talk to them. Basically, layering all those modes of voter contact together so that when they add up, they amount to what we could otherwise do, with just door knocking. And so that's kind of the strategy, is layering modes of voter contact so that you're reaching some people who answer the phone, and then you're reaching people who get on Facebook or watch, things on YouTube or, really anything like that. So that's really important to note. But how we would normally reach them is knocking on their door. And that's just not going to be possible this year, barring, a vaccine coming out or something like that. So it's a great point. It's something that we're watching, and we're doing a lot of modeling for targeted mail program, because targeted mail is expensive, but the party feels that it's going to be worth the investment to do some of that targeted mail. So that's really what we're looking at right now.
So if we plan, I've already did some outreach in the community, and I've spoken to some organizations about going and being safe with our action. We may door knock in those areas. We may set up in those communities. We may do honking ways in those communities to make some impact and some inroads with those folks, because I get what they're trying to do, but that does not resonate with that demographics to respond. And it's definitely some visual and contact. I get it. I understand it. You know, I've worked on campaigns for a minute, so I do know what's there and how it needs to be tweaked so that we can engage some of those voters. You know, some elections are won because of 7 votes. We don't want that happening
100%.
here.
Even 1 per precinct. Thank you so much. Anything else to complete that circle, George?
Yeah, so I'm just going to say that the guidance that we've been given and some of the anecdotal data that we've seen is that voters are scared when people show up at their door. And I mean, if you know the community really well and they know you, then it could be worth it. But if someone shows up from the Ohio Democratic Party on their door, we've seen backlash to that.
Yeah.
And so we're like I said, we may do some lit drop. I will say we will probably be doing some lit drop and testing a few different methods like Deidre said. But as far as like the large scale canvassing efforts, we have seen backlash to that, and we've received guidance from a lot of organizations, both nationally and in the state, that have shown us that for now, it's not a good idea for us. So I'm not going to say like what specific campaigns or groups, you know, shouldn't do for certain areas, but just largely we're not going to do it because we've seen a backlash to that.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Let's thank you very much for your comments and questions. Who's next with a question, comment, suggestion to George? Antoinette.
Well, and then after me, Laurel had her hand raised. My resistance to literature drops, for example, is that when I lived in a house, I live in a condominium now, and people are not permitted to come in and drop things at our door. But when I lived in a house, I found literature drops annoying as the recipient, because I got a bunch of the same things in the mail, and then often it came after I usually do absentee ballot, so the literature came to me after I had already voted, and then here was all this stuff on my front porch, and I had to take it from my front porch and get it into the recycling bin, and then I was thinking, oh no, but more trees were killed to do this. So that's my resistance to literature drops.
Yeah. Okay, well, you're on the spot, George.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I will say if you already voted and you got literature, that's bad modeling and bad targeting. Our modeling and targeting shows us that we can see when someone has early voted. That's, you know, publicly available. And so when someone does that, we automatically take them off of any mailing or lit drop list. That's automatically, or phone calls or literally anything, we take you off the list because you've already voted. And so for us in the mail that we will send, maybe those were different other, you know, campaigns and campaigns that didn't do that. But we will not be doing that as far as how we model it with our data team. The other thing that I will say about that is I hear you about, you know, cutting down trees and stuff. It's hard because, I mean, it is an effective mode of voter contact. It does get us votes. And so I think that, you know, when we compare that largely with the things that we could do once we're in office, as far as, you know, environmental regulation and, you know, combating the climate crisis and things like that, you know, and also we try to use a printer who uses some recyclable materials as well. So we do our best to try and be eco-friendly as far as our literature. But yeah, and I should mention, we have a digital sample ballot slate card that we are going to be rolling out for free to all the counties, and we're going to be doing a texting program, we believe, later, much closer to GOTV when people are actually voting, to try and get that digital slate card appearing on people's Facebook feeds and, you know, on their cell phone and everything like that, just putting that everywhere that we can. And so that'll cut down on some of that as well.
Right.
So it's just, you know, lit drop is one of the tools in the arsenal that we do still have as far as door knocking. Maybe, like I said, we're testing it a little bit right now to see how it goes and its effectiveness. It's not as effective as door knocking and having a conversation. Oh, we know that. But like I said, that's just not, it's not an option for us this year. So we got to kind of do what we can.
So if I deliver 50 lit drops, George, the advantage, it seems, is that I might save the party or the campaign $20 because I could mail it. It's going to arrive, and in some ways it'll be a little less annoying, like Antoinette mentioned. It'll just be with the other mail. It could be considered junk mail, but still. Or I could write a postcard, which is personal, which then gets more attention from people. What is your sense? Is a lit drop just basically a money saver for the campaign or the party?
It can be. The other thing is actually lit drops can gain a little bit more attention because it's actually on your door. But yes, it does largely save money for the parties and the campaigns because they don't have to pay for postage.
Yeah.
It also allows, you know, like I said, it's an attention grabber immediately because you're grabbing it off the door. So you're basically making it so they have to look at it. That's largely the added benefit.
Right.
Especially if they're a nice door.
Having it on the doorknob is an advantage over sliding it under the mat. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, who's next? Yes, Laurel.
Okay, one question from the chat, and then I have a comment. The question was, are there hashtags that you can share for folks to use on social media when we're tweeting, or will those come out as needed?
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, we do have a hashtag right now that we've been using. It's hashtag OHDems. That's the big one. But we're working through a couple of different hashtags that we think we might use for the coordinated campaign this year. But for now, hashtag OHDems is the best one.
How do we find those, George, as they come out? We those of us here, and this is recorded and other people will be, I know, will be watching it afterwards. How do we find the hashtags in an easy way?
We will be sure to push that out when we do a big social media push and a big social media campaign. We will kind of make it a big flashing, you know, light that we're using this new hashtag. So we'll make sure to clue you guys in on that.
My comment then is, I really would like it if we could use all of these digital tools, not just to remind our friends to do whatever, vote early, whatever, but to really try to reach all of these voters that aren't any of our acquaintances, but the vast number of voters that you know, or sometimes voters that are out there that we can't reach. We can't even reach when we canvass. I'm thinking specifically of the numbers of people that live in apartment buildings that we can't access. And apartments, as you might think, would be great places for people who need to re-register, people that maybe don't, you know, young people that may be new to voting, or people that may not always vote for a bunch of reasons. And so I would love it. And I have not, even in all of these trainings that I've taken a number of trainings and I'm all behind the digital, but I've not really seen how you're using these tools to reach those people. And I think those are the people we really, really need to reach. That's my comment.
Yeah. So this is a persistent issue with basically anything that the party or any campaign can try and do, because if you're not registered, we don't know who you are. And so that largely, like, there's no information on those kinds of people. So the only thing we can do is use like national change of address data and create a best guess and send mail. That's about the only piercing way that you can get in. The other way is targeted digital ads on Facebook feeds, on Twitter feeds, on YouTube feeds, which we do, to list build, to find out who these people are. we could target them for a specific geographic area. Even
I think
blocks,
that's going to be
city
really
blocks,
important because we can't reach these people otherwise.
and that's going to be work that largely lies on like the parties and the campaigns. That's work that's a lot harder for volunteers to do because like they can't get there. The only guess that I would have is, you know, phone banking and things like that is how you could reach some of those people. And that's like, we will be doing a lot of that. But some of that other stuff is happening a lot more behind the scenes. And it is something that like we're working on as far as like a digital campaign with, you know, stuff like digital ad campaigns.
Yeah. Getting to know you now, George, and knowing Simon Dallas and of course David Pepper is your leader there, and he lives down here, so we get a chance to see him quite a bit. It seems important for me, my interest in donating to the Ohio Democratic Party during this time, to pay your salary and also to pay for these tools and other things, is how important is it that we contribute to your work and
Yeah.
to the Hamilton County or the Ohio Democratic Party?
So I will say it's extremely important. I'm not normally the guy that makes pitches to ask for donations. I prefer to ask for people to sign. I think Jennifer will agree to this. I normally prefer to ask them to sign up for volunteer shifts. But I will say that it's really important. Small dollars really power the party. And just as a larger democratic ecosystem and infrastructure, and this is me kind of getting personal and putting my 2 cents into it.
Yeah.
State parties and county parties largely have been underfunded chronically for years, really since even Howard Dean in the 04 chairmanship. Chairman Perez has done a fantastic job of trying to get more of that money to come for state parties, but it's still incredibly difficult for especially like the wider donor base to recognize that, because it's, to be quite frank, it's a lot sexier to give to like a new digital startup or, you know, the hottest, you know, Senate campaign than giving to like your state Democratic Party. It's a lot more motivating for people. And I get that, right? Like I've donated to my share of Senate campaigns this cycle, you know, Sarah Gideon in Maine among them. But one thing that I will say is that state parties are the ones doing the work on the ground right now. The Biden campaign has largely transitioned a lot of their field and outreach operations over to the state parties and is working hand in hand with them in these coordinated campaigns. And so like, if you want to see, you know, funding for, you know, the Biden campaign and funding for your candidates up and down the ballot, the best bang for your buck is giving to your state and county Democratic Party.
Wow. Yeah.
So, you know, like I said, if we don't have the money to do the work, then it's largely not going to get done, right? Like we're the ones, you know, putting together this coordinated campaign table. The Biden campaign put in some of their organizers, and we hired some organizers. You know, that's how Jennifer came on board, and we'd like to hire a whole bunch more, but we need the money to do it. So
Wow.
anything you have to give to your state and county Democratic Party are really important. I see a thing in here about unionization, and I really want to touch on that because this is a really important point. The coordinated campaign is unionized through the IBEW this year. The union's been recognized in, you know, negotiations. I'm not privy to everything that happens there. So I'm not really sure exactly what's going on, but I know that they're going through the IBEW in unionizing. And that's like already happened. We don't anticipate that being a big problem
That's
this year.
great. So the staff,
we're very excited about it.
So that means all the workers for the ODP, same with Hamilton County, all the staff members are in a union, represented by a union. Is that right, George?
There's a slight exception. So that's the coordinated campaign staff for the 2020 Battleground Victory. So Jennifer is IBEW. I am not.
Okay. Why is that? Why are you not?
So the ODP staff have largely not taken the steps to unionize yet. There's been it's not any resistance from like the staff or anything like that. A lot of us are newer, I'll be honest. We just came on here very recently. I've been on for about a year, but most of our staff is newer than that, and so I don't think that they've just been put together. We're also small, honestly, so it's hard to put together the number or anything like that for a union, because most of the junior level staff who would be eligible to join the union, I think there's only like 4 or 5 of us. So it's just not something that has ever really materialized for one reason or another yet. But the coordinated campaign is fully unionized, and we're really excited about that.
Yay, Jennifer. So when we give to the ODP also, we're also supporting Jennifer as our Southwest field director, Southwest Ohio field director. Is that right, Jennifer? Oh, you have to unmute for a moment.
I'm trying to get my mouth there. Yes, that is correct.
Terrific. So to support there as well. Thank you. I think those are important. Who's next with a question, comment? Yes, Susan.
I have heard that the reason that REACH is so good, that AOC used it in New York and was able to get into those multifamily apartment buildings. But what I've heard from you, that's not true.
So it is true with the way that they did it. The way that they got into multifamily apartment buildings and used REACH was they went to things like farmers markets and subway platforms that were very busy, and they would interview people there and instead of at their homes. And so like that's how they used it to get into those places. And so we could do that, right? But unfortunately now there aren't like crowds of people. So
yeah,
we just have to go to the bars. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, apparently there's plenty of people there.
Right. Yes. Who has a question or comment or resistance? Now let's do a little soul bearing about how many of us are resistant to texting, peer-to-peer texting, or doing any of that, or learning these tools. There is a learning curve with REACH and with these things. Oh, Antoinette's going to make her confession. Yes.
Okay, first me and then Nancy has her hand up. I'm not lobbying to be queen of resistance here, but
okay.
Okay. I do have resistance to texting things out to friends and family, and partly because I have a really big contact list, and so when I think of pulling out just the people that I think would respond to the message that I would send, I anticipate several hours of work to have to sort through my contact list, and then, make sure that their phone numbers are still accurate and all that stuff. So I'm intimidated by what I think I need to do to even participate in it. And, then I know how to do it once I get my list together. The other part of the texting is to the list of names that I know could be given to me. And I've gotten feedback from people who say they really resent or get annoyed at getting these anonymous texts about stuff, even if they ideologically agree with the message. It's like, it's like junk mail coming in. And so, what I prefer to do instead of resisting something I'm not drawn to is to go towards what I enjoy doing, which is phone banking or phone canvassing, or some of the other things that are available. It's not like there isn't a lot of stuff to do out there, and my preference is to really do what I enjoy and what I feel passionate about. And what I feel passionate about is that we win in November and get a new president and new Democratic candidate slate. So I'm going to do, instead of resisting, I'm going to go for the things that I like to do and try those.
Yeah.
Terrific. Yay. But George, I would like to see you handle that resistance. One is she has a lot of contacts. using Reach. How does she narrow those contacts down?
So yeah, I want to answer her question, and then I want to let Jennifer talk because
Yes.
I think that she has some thoughts on this too a little
Good.
bit. But so you don't have to go through your whole contact list all in one sitting. You can, the way that we've kind of explained it to people is take, 15 minutes and just start alphabetically and go down, using the contact import feature in Reach, and just, keep going down and working through your contact list a little bit at a time until it's done. And you can, the nice thing about Reach, especially as opposed, this is one of the reasons we didn't go with Outvote for statewide, is because we did hear some of this, and Outvote just uploads all your contacts all in one shot. With Reach, you can pull out the people that you want to contact and send messages to. So for example, I could pull my cousins who are swing voters, but leave my Trumpy uncle off, right? Or things like that. Or if it's someone I don't know super well, it's just like a quick phone number I picked up from work or something like that. I'm not going to send that person maybe a text message about voting, but someone I know a little better, I might. So Reach allows you to go through your contact list and pull them with who you might think. But Jennifer certainly probably has some thoughts on using your talents for phone banking.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Actually, George hit the nail on the head with Reach, and that's what I love about it, is you can kind of avoid some conflict. Part of the resistance is we don't talk about politics and religion, right? Socially, if we're being polite. So if people know you, if they're really close to you, you can use Reach, and it's a very comfortable tool to use. But I mean, I am always looking for phone bankers. So,
She's really good.
Comfortable with that, then I would love to sign you up, and we can get started. Absolutely.
Yeah. What about the other resistance there, which is Antoinette said, if I heard correctly, that she does not like receiving these kind of more anything less than a personal or family text. She doesn't like receiving them. So if you have that resistance, it's hard to do it to others that you don't like yourself. What do either of you, thanks for your input, Jennifer, how do you overcome that?
I think that, go George.
Oh, no, I want you to talk to her. Go ahead.
I think that that's also one of the benefits to Reach, because it is personal, because you have selected the people that you feel comfortable reaching out to about your political views or what is pertinent to the community. So you're not spamming people. You are sending them a canned message, but you're not really spamming them. This is a sincere passion of yours. You're reaching out to people that you have genuine connections with. And it's not the same as just sending out massive junk mail, in my opinion.
Yes, terrific.
Yeah, and one thing that I'll add on to that, Jennifer's 100% correct in that. The other thing that I'll add is there's always going to be some pushback and resistance to different forms of voter contact amongst different people. I mean, it's the same as if you walk up to a door and there's like a no soliciting sign, right? Or, that person doesn't like to have their door knocked on, so maybe it's better to mail or text them. Some people really don't like getting phone calls from phone banking. They hang up right away. So it's really just going to depend, and that's why we layer modes of voter contact on top of each other, so that we eventually do hit that sweet spot for that person and we contact them the way that they want. You only know if you do an approach that has all of these different tools and methods, what works for a certain person. And so just kind of layering those all together is how we do that.
That's one of the language I've really learned from you, George, and the picture I'm giving. I like looking at things in pictures, is the layering. That I thought of these all as kind of separate and maybe even fighting each other rather than, but I like your language there of layering the number of ways to reach voters, eligible voters, is a positive way. And then, as you said, people then, the one that clicks, the sweet spot, that works, that'll work. And that way we're successful in reaching them and getting the slate card and getting them to care about registering perhaps, or getting their app for a ballot in early, and all those important things that we want to accomplish. Who's next with something or resistance too? Remember your resistances, speak them up, but whatever it is. Nikki.
No, Nancy was next. And
Nancy.
Yeah, well, thanks, because I have to go, but I just wanted to say that I want to learn. That's why I go to the training. And I try to use it as I can. But I'm really slow on all of this tech stuff, and it's not easy for me to process it all. And the reach distinction that you made, because I wasn't able to tune into reach yet, it makes a big difference for me, because I'm happy to send to the people that are my contacts, the ones that make sense. A lot of them doesn't make sense to send what I want to send. So
Yeah.
that answered a question for me. And so that's why I keep attending, and I do. And I use some social media. I post a few things. I don't have huge followings. I don't use that stuff much. You know, I'm doing a lot of other things that are easier for me to do for the campaigns. So I'm trying to pick and choose what works for me. So
Yeah.
that's what I have to say. Thanks.
Good. Thank you, Nancy.
And thank you for all of these. And it was good to see you all.
Thank you, Nance. And I'll go to you, Nikki, first, but I wanted to squeeze in based on Nancy's thing. Is reach, would you say, is it, for those of us that don't know much about it yet or aren't using it regularly, George, is it fairly easy, medium, difficult? Where would you rate it from a newbie's point of view, not from your highly experienced point of view?
Yeah, so when we were exploring a bunch of different tools for this, part of the reason that we went with Reach is because I would definitely say it's on the easy to medium side. It's much easier to use than something I found from a user interface or UI perspective. Some other apps were a little more difficult. That's not to say don't try. I'm not really trying to say don't try Hamilton County's Outvote, because I really think that it is a good tool, and like you should use it and like do what you can to get involved with that campaign. And I think that Deidre and the training program that she's put together was quite good. I actually attended it myself because I was curious. So I think that you should definitely get involved and plugged into that. But just one of the reasons that we have a lot of more rural areas that we have to reach to at times. And a lot of people aren't as tech savvy. So like, that's why we went with Reach, because you only have to log in once. You don't have to remember a password. It's fairly, once you get the hang of it and start using it a couple of times, you really catch on, and it's pretty intuitive. It's really just like Google, like you search the person, you answer the questions that person has answered, and you hit save, and that's pretty much it. You can upload your contacts and send some text messages as well. So once you use it a little bit, I think it's pretty easy to get the hang of, and that's why we went with it. Yeah.
Good going. Nikki.
Yes, I've, by accident, I don't Twitter stuff, so who does? So I've started a conversation with one of the lifeguards here. She actually responded. She'll be a first-time voter in this district.
Wow.
And I sent her a few things, the uncomfortable conversations and the Kimberly Jones's Monopoly comparison. And she actually responded and almost attended the Indivisible on Wednesday, but couldn't, but is looking to see if she'll fit it into her schedule this coming Wednesday.
So I just want to piggyback. That is relational organizing, right? Like, that's someone that's someone you're reaching out to, you're engaging a first-time voter, and that's someone who maybe like they know they might vote for Joe Biden for president maybe, and I'm just guessing here, but they probably don't know who they're going to vote for down ballot for like some of the judges, for example.
Exactly.
So, like, if they get all the way down and they think, I don't know, I'm gonna, just leave it blank because I don't want to make the wrong decision, that's a vote that we have lost to drop off, right? And so just by engaging that person, you're engaging in relational organizing. And when it comes to use and reach, right, if you were using Reach, you can record that interaction in Reach. You could look the person up and you can record leaning or strong Democratic, and that's giving us a new data point on a voter that we haven't previously contacted before. That's doing relational voter contact, and at its core, that's what Reach is best at. I have a good example. My mom was at my one cousin had one of those drive-through baby showers, because of the virus and all of that. And so she was talking to my cousin on the phone afterward, and they got on the topic of me and my work. And, so then it was the topic of the election. And my cousin did not vote in 16. My mom found out, and neither did her husband. and they were now kind of confused about voting because they're not sure if they like, I mean, they really don't like Donald Trump, but they're also not sure about Biden, you know, a lot of those really undecided voters. And so my mom was actually able to talk to her, and they have an ongoing conversation about the issues. And she actually recorded that conversation and marked, my mom uses Reach because she's super supportive of what I do, which I'm always happy about. But she recorded that conversation in Reach and marked my cousin and her husband as undecided voters. And so like, that's a data point that we now have to go off of. So it's just that relational voter contact, those conversations that you have every day that you don't necessarily think about, that you can record and you know, record that interaction. So that's a great example, and that's awesome to hear, because just think if you do that for 2 or 3 people, you know, you're increasing our vote share, you know, you're multiplying your vote almost.
Yeah.
So
The other thing, I also put her on to Charmaine McGuffey's, the live on Thursdays, and she has a cousin, I'm not sure, a cousin, I think it's a cousin, who's really working with the incarceration and justice kinds of things. And so I'm still searching for that mental health thing that was on PBS. I can't find that. The one that Mary Carroll sent me, it was not the same one that I had seen. So I'm trying to track that down so she can then send that to her cousin.
Good going.
So,
yeah, that's exactly, as George said, relational organizing. And then one leads to another, which is, of course, is really powerful.
and
Yeah.
I don't, like I said, I don't have young friends. All my friends are you guys here are all my age. So, you know.
Yeah.
And I was just curious, Patrick, that I talked with at New Democracy, went on the AFTAB, is he still involved?
Patrick Barnacle or Patrick Dahlstrom?
I never knew his last name.
Yeah,
He's the one that put me on to The Wilderness. And if
Yeah.
anybody has not listened to The Wilderness, which is a podcast, that's what got him to A Bold New Democracy.
Yeah, that was, again, relational organizing, giving some content, compelling content like The Wilderness podcast.
So is he still involved?
He is still involved. Not quite as active because he lost one job and he, you know, because of the virus or whatever.
Okay.
And so he's kind of scrambling in some ways. And I think he misses the in-person. That's one of the hard things. Those of us that use Zoom, they has many advantages. But for many people, it is that personal contact that really drove them to be more active and be more present. Meeting
Richard,
after session.
Could you send me his contact, like an email or?
Yeah, remind me if you don't mind. Send
Okay.
me an email. Yeah. We're getting close to the ending of our time, but other resistances you might have, questions about Reach and how it works, or some other things. Steve, welcome, Steve. And to unmute. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, very good. Hey, I've got a couple of things here. First one, I don't know, it's maybe just a personal thing, but like Charmaine McGuffey's campaign,
Yes.
she has events on, but they're all on Facebook. Now,
Yes.
I am not a member of Facebook. I don't like Facebook because
Yeah.
they seem to be involved with all the Russian trolls and
Yeah.
everything that's nasty and ugly on the internet seems to be associated with Facebook. So I've been resistant, although I noticed that the Democratic Party seems to be using Facebook, or Blue Ash Dems are using it. So that's just something
Good
that
point. I think it's
talking
an
about
important
resistance.
point, Steve. There are many people, you're not alone at all. There's many people that feel that, and I'll pass that on. I don't think, I don't see Christine, I know, is on her campaign. She's no longer with us, but I will make sure that they get that, because I think they can use, what are other methods for people, if you were advising or coaching, George, the Charmaine campaign based on Steve's input, what would you tell the Charmaine campaign to reach people like Steve and others?
yeah, so I think it can be, it's kind of hard because Facebook is awful, and Mark Zuckerberg is the destroyer of the internet, and they continue to make horrible decisions in regards to misinformation and management of their platform. The most recent example is they just announced that they're exploring a ban on all political advertising on Facebook, which does not solve the problem of misinformation on their platform. It's totally glossing over the issue, and it would hurt a lot of down ballot campaigns, which are already struggling and overregulated. But the one thing that I will say is that if I would encourage campaigns to also stream these events on their website, create a YouTube page so that, you know, it's accessible to everybody and they can just see the video as well. You can stream to multiple places. And so we try to do that at the state party, but Facebook is the largest social media network for a lot of people who are of voting age. It's easily accessible. It's really easy to use, and it's really easy to organize on. And so, like, we certainly use it because if we don't use it, we're leaving voters and contact methods on the table. And so we're almost forced into using it, which is why a lot of people argue that Facebook should be regulated like a public utility. I would argue that they're probably right. But so I would just say to campaigns, make your content as accessible as possible on different platforms so that everyone can kind of see it. But I would also say that, like, I wouldn't discourage them from using Facebook because it is a good way to reach voters.
Yeah, good point though, Steve. We have to expand it layers, as George said before, that the Charmaine should be using more layers of things. Do you have another point, Steve?
Well, even if it was just like also on Zoom or occasionally Zoom, you know what I mean? There's been several of them that I've seen advertised or I got emails about that I would have jumped in on. You know, except that, like I say, I'm not set up for the Facebook thing. And as soon as I go there and it says, well, put in your password, I say, bye.
Can it be done with both? Can Zoom and Facebook be done concurrently, George?
Yeah, so Zoom can actually live stream to Facebook. I think that the McGuffey campaigns probably, their resistance to using something like Zoom is that you have a limited number of attendees. And so, like, you can't get as many people. If you get too many people on the Zoom link, then it won't work. And then you have to pay for it. And so I think that's probably their resistance to doing something like that. Like I said, I would, if I were them, I would set up a YouTube account and I would stream all those events on my on my website or on my Facebook, or sorry, on my website. In addition to my Facebook, because you can stream to multiple places. And that's probably what I would do. ODP tries to do that with most of our events. It's a good practice because there are a lot of people not on Facebook, but with YouTube, you obviously don't have to have an account. You can just view the video.
Yeah.
And so that's usually what I recommend as well, is if you're stream it to Facebook, certainly, but also stream it to YouTube. And then when you send the email out, make it the most accessible link. So make it the YouTube link. You can also link the YouTube video to your website so people could go on your website and see the video.
That's really helpful, Steve. Thanks for bringing that up. Is there anything else, Steve?
Okay, well, there's a couple of things. They're not really related to the points you're making today, this software stuff, but maybe you can guide me to where. Okay, I'm in the middle of making some political contributions right now, and I really feel strongly about this current election, that we really need to get rid of some people there. I mean, it's like, okay, I'm here in Hamilton County, but I've sent some money down to Amy McGrath because, you know, I really don't like Mitch. So, and also a company I used to work for, we had Steve Shabbat showing up out there, and Weinstrup, and what was her name, the one that was so obnoxious?
Probably Jean Schmidt.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. They'd be showing up out there. So I really dislike them. So anyhow, let's see, where was I?
Your question or
Well, oh, okay, yeah, that was my point, and actually it went along with. I heard a thing with Jessica Miranda on a Zoom thing, and then my audio dropped out at some point in that, and I had to jump out to try to get it reset. But she was talking about Ohio congressional seats and Senate seats that, you know, we may be able to do something about. You know, okay, I'm throwing some money out there, but I don't like to just throw it away. I don't, you know, somebody that just says, hey, I'd like to try this, you know, I'm not really interested in that.
Yeah.
Anybody that puts out a list of, hey, these are really, they may not be in your neighborhood, but these are really winnable seats that we could go after. If they had a few more bucks, they might have a chance.
At Bold New Democracy, which is a group that meets every Tuesday, Steve, and you're welcome to take part, we prioritized our 33 candidates in this region down here in order to answer that question. Now, we did one of those, we got it down to 11. Now, one of those 11 out of 33, because some are not going to win and some are not going to lose of the Ohio congressional because of gerrymandering and all. But we got it down to 11. Now, one of those 11 is the 13 Hamilton County judges, but they have a coordinated campaign. So we give to the coordinated judicial campaign is that, but we got it down to 11. Now there's ones out of state, you know, like you mentioned, Amy, now we are adopting Amy McGrath in Bold New Democracy, even though we're in Hamilton County, we're adopting Amy because of the importance. But we're not adopting all the other senators that we'd love to see win around the country. That's up to everybody else. What is your sense, George, of how to guidance? I know you're on the field side and the connection side rather than on the fundraising side, but what is your advice about making the decisions like Steve is doing?
Oh, so Jennifer has one thing, but then I want to go back to Steve's point because I think that that's really important. Jennifer, do you want to, or do you want to just wait till the end?
I definitely want Steve to get his question answered because it's a really good question. You know, we have winnable seats that just need a few dollars. We would like to identify those.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to know, while we still had a few people on the line, if anyone wanted to volunteer with ODP, which is the coordinated campaign. So everything that's local, all the endorsed candidates. I'm going to put my number in the chat. And if you are interested, just reach out to me, please.
Thank you. And Jennifer's coming to Bold New Democracy to be featured and make the connections this Tuesday. At 7 o'clock. So if you're not on the invitation list, Steve, or, oh, hi, Vanessa is running for a C2, and I forget the number.
8. Oh,
good. Give us we're kind of getting late, Vanessa, so I'm sorry I did not give you more time. But what is you're a candidate for what seat?
I'm a candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives in the 8th Congressional District. That is, Boehner's old district.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm running against Warren Davidson in this district. And I was off camera because we just got our lit drop teams out on the street. So I was doing that while listening today.
How'd it go?
Yeah, so we've got about 10 folks hitting a neighborhood right now in Fairfield. And we're trying to get folks on the phone this afternoon and some other stuff. But we are running a very exciting campaign in Butler County, Butler, Clark, Darke, Miami, Mercer, and Preble counties. And so I ran in 2018 and back again, and we actually won nearly 40% of the vote in this district. This district's primarily ignored by ODP, by the DCCC, and yet we had no drop off in our campaign in 2018, even without having the huge coffers of money. We didn't have drop off, which means that people in this district are voting. We have a digital team who is looking at the numbers, identifying who we need to target. And so we have communities here that have 30% or less turnout. And so we know that we have the votes here, and so we're in those 30% or less turnouts at this point in the campaign. Later on in our campaign, in our GOTV efforts, we're gonna focus on people who have 50% or more voter turnout. And so we're gonna do this year. We're gonna win this race. And so my team is psyched. We've got a lot of the same volunteers we had in 2018. Yeah. And this year they're experienced, they're ready, and they're already out on the street, and everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. So I'm excited.
Thank you. And please, for those like Steve, if you're not receiving invitations to Bold New Democracy, because again, our mailing goes out to 1,200. Our notes and actions. So please do that. And we're at the end here. Closing comments. I'd like to certainly honor and welcome Jennifer too. Again, it's such a joy meeting you and having you here in Southwest Ohio and coming from Southwest Ohio to be the leader of the Battleground Ohio campaign, Jennifer, to really do it. And George, any closing comments, George, for those of us that want to support your work and learn these digital tools?
Yeah, so just to kind of take us home a little bit, I did want to briefly answer Steve's question about donating.
Yes.
If you go to places like, I mean, the DCCC is the most prominent example, but they can also tend to overlook some candidates like Vanessa said. But the Ohio House Democratic Caucus, their website, I posted the link. Same with the Ohio Senate Democratic Caucus. If on their website under their candidates section, if they list candidates as red to blue, that means that they are targeting them for flips. If a candidate is a critical hold as well, they have a couple critical holds. I think back where I'm from, actually, Senator Sean O'Brien in the Ashtabula, Trumbull, Mahoning Valley area, he's a very critical hold that we're hoping to hold on to his seat. And then give to your down ballot candidates. I would say in your area. I mean, give to candidates around you who need an extra boost, like Vanessa, like so there are a few others. Jean Schmidt, who you mentioned, she's actually running for an Ohio House seat to make her return to politics this year. And so she has, I believe her candidate, the opposition to her is Alan Darnowski is his name.
That's correct.
Yeah. And so give to him, I mean, there are plenty of people down ballot who are building a Democratic movement who are going to lift the Democratic tide across the state. So those are just my helpful hints is give locally, give in the state, and flip some states. Your money goes a lot farther when you give it to a state party or to an Ohio House candidate or House or Ohio Senate candidate, because those are just smaller districts, so you get a lot more bang for your buck. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you, Jennifer. And just to take us all home, I really appreciate everything that you guys are doing as Bold New Democracy members to kind of move the ball forward here in Ohio. Like I said, you're in a pivotal county. This year, Hamilton County has been increasingly blue over time. And this is no different. We're going to see a big change in the suburbs. We think you have really targeted races down in Cincinnati from the DCCC with Kate Schroeder running, with Sarah Bitter running to flip Tom Brinkman's seat in the 27th. That's extremely winnable. And you have some targeted countywide races and
Jessica Miranda now.
Like I said, and Jessica Miranda holding Jessica Miranda's seat, which I think she's in a very strong position to do. But it only happens if we put in the work, right?
Yeah.
The Ohio Democratic Party can't do it on our own. No. Kate Schroeder can't do it on her own.
Right.
We have to all get involved together. We have to pick up the phone. We have to make calls. We have to get on these trainings. So I posted the link to my mobilized events. But the one thing that I do want to do, if you maybe don't want to do a digital training, you want to find a different event near you, go to mobilize.us/OHDems, and you can find a list of events near you. And then I also want you to text organize to 79229 because that's how you get on our broadcast SMS list, which I know we mentioned about getting text messages that we don't like, but we don't spam our broadcast SMS list, and we really only blast out really important information on our list. So for example, like we had a Sherrod Brown roundtable that we put information out about if Sherrod's doing a big event or Joe Biden is doing a big Ohio virtual event, we put that kind of thing on there. Discounts on our store online sometimes. Occasionally, if we get a new item, we'll put that on there. And then big volunteer pushes. If we're having big weekends of action or big updates, we try and put that information on there too.
Tell us again how to do that again.
Yeah, text the word organize to the phone number 79229. That's the best way to stay. It's kind of just like your push alerts from ODP, only occasionally. So, but that's all I have. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
We want to invite you back, and be sure to reach out to us anytime.
I will. And if you know Simon's great too. I know Simon spoke glowingly of you, Richard. So he's my guy at work. So
yeah, terrific. Thank you, each of you, for all the work that you're doing and the care that you're doing. And let's keep working together to do this. We know how important it is for government, for the most vulnerable people, and for the planet. It's, you know, our planet too. I mean, we have to really, with all this political work, I'm seeing that some of the climate work and the environmental work is being pushed on the back. But if we get these people elected, then we're going to be able to move it in front with a lot more support. So thank you all so much for coming, and we'll get the recording out. You'll see the recording listed soon in the Bold New Democracy work. Love, love, love. Thank you so much. Thank you, George. Thank you, Jennifer.